Remember that huge SolarWinds cyber attack back in 2020?
Yeah, the one that hit all those government agencies and companies?
Yeah, that's the one. Well, it's still making waves, you know. This time, it's the SEC taking action.
Oh, really? What are they up to now?
They're going after 4 companies for not being straight with investors about how the hack affected them.
Interesting. Which companies are we talking about here?
Avaya, Checkpoint, Mimecast, and Unisys.
So what exactly did they do?
Well, that's what we're diving deep into today to see what they allegedly kept hidden from their investors and why the SEC is, kind of drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear more about that. Like, what's the SEC's angle here?
Well, it seems like they're not just zeroing in on, like, the technical nuts and bolts of the hack itself.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at the bigger picture.
Makes sense.
The whole trust thing that drives the financial markets and how reliable they are and all that.
Yeah.
Speaking of trust, Sanjay Wadhwa, he's like the SEC's acting enforcement director, he came out and said companies can't be like further victimizing their shareholders by leaving them in the dark about these cybersecurity things.
Further victimizing, huh?
Yeah, pretty strong words, right?
Yeah, it sounds like they're not messing around. So what's the SEC really saying here?
Oh, it sounds like they're saying, when it comes to a cyber attack, a company really has to double down on being open and honest with its investors.
Sure.
Can't be hiding stuff, basically.
Right.
So enough with the big picture stuff. Let's get into some of the specifics about these companies.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
So Unisys, for example, they basically try to downplay the risks as hypothetical.
Hypothetical, come on.
Right. Even though they lost, get this, 33 gigabytes of data.
Wow. 33 gigabytes. It's a ton. What could that even include?
I mean, we're talking potentially like tons of sensitive customer information, financial records, who knows, maybe even proprietary code, the whole 9 yards.
Yikes. That's not good.
And get this, it happened twice. Not once, but twice.
No way. They lost that much data twice.
Yeah, which really makes you wonder about their security practices, to say the least.
Yeah, no kidding. Sounds like they've got some serious issues.
No kidding. I mean, it's almost like saying, oh, the Titanic might sink, but it's just a theory.
Right. Like, how could they even try to downplay something that big?
Exactly. And that's probably why the SEC came down on them with those extra violations for disclosure control.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about these other companies? What did they do?
Well, Avaya, now they're an interesting case. They first said that only a limited number of emails were accessed.
Limited number, huh? Sounds almost reassuring if you don't know any better.
It does, right? But, well, it turns out it's a lot worse than that.
Oh, how so?
It turns out that the attackers actually accessed like 145 files that were stored in Avaya's cloud.
The cloud, that's where a lot of sensitive stuff is kept.
You know it. We're talking customer databases, financial reports, intellectual property, maybe even trade secrets.
Wow. So they really tried to downplay a pretty serious breach.
Exactly. And the cloud, well, you know what lives in the cloud.
Yeah, it's pretty much a company's digital heart and soul these days.
That's totally.
So minimizing a breach like that, it's a big no-no.
You got it. Okay, so moving on to Checkpoint and Mimecast. Now, they're in hot water for keeping things kind of vague.
Vague, like how?
Like, they didn't give much detail in their disclosures. And Mimecast especially, they kept quiet about the type of code that got stolen and how many user credentials were compromised.
Yeah, I see why the SEC would have a problem with that.
Right. So why do you think those specifics are so important?
Well, think about it. Without all the nitty-gritty details, investors are practically making decisions in the dark.
Makes sense.
They can't really figure out how much risk they're taking on.
True.
And that makes it, like, impossible to make smart choices about their investments, right?
Yep, exactly.
It's kind of like buying a used car where the seller's not telling you it was in a major accident.
Oh, I get it.
You're left clueless about the real value and what problems might be lurking under the hood.
Makes sense. Jorge Tenreiro, he's the acting chief of the SEC's crypto assets and cyber unit. He really nailed it when he said...
What did he say?
He said that the federal securities laws prohibit half-truths, and there is no exception for statements in risk factor disclosures.
Straight to the point. No room for interpretation there.
Right. No beating around the bush.
And you know what? This whole thing has implications that go way beyond these 4 companies we've been talking about.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, the SEC's setting a precedent, sending a big message to any public company out there. You can't hide behind vague language or try to sugarcoat a breach.
Got it.
Transparency is key.
So, bottom line for investors, what do they really need to know moving forward?
I think this really drives home the importance of, cybersecurity due diligence. Investors have to be willing to ask those tough questions, demanding to see the whole picture, and really scrutinize a company's cybersecurity posture. Uh-huh.
And all that, before they even think about investing.
So you're saying it's not just a tech issue.
Exactly. It's a business risk, one that can directly hit their investments.
Man, that's a real wake-up call. This whole thing, though, it kind of begs the question.
What's that?
Could this be like a turning point? A push for stricter rules about cybersecurity disclosures across all industries. It's something to ponder, especially with all the cyber threats out there that just keep getting trickier.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
At the end of the day, stay informed, ask those tough questions, and don't be shy about demanding transparency from the companies you're thinking about investing in. Because, let's be real, it's your hard-earned money on the line.
Absolutely. And your security, too.
Exactly.